So we're going to take a look at now using the Iptables command in a little bit more detail. And in our first demonstration, we're going to look at how we can list our existing firewall rules. Now those existing rules were created on the system router 1, so of course this is where we're going to begin. We also, when we're listing permissions, still need to have root privileges, so we're going to use sudo and Iptables to list the Iptables rules. It's the option minus uppercase L that we use. Now when we look at this, we see our input chain, our forward chain and our output chain, but we're not seeing the rules that we created. This is because if we don't specify the table that we want to look at, we will display the packet filter table, and we haven't created anything in the filter table so far. We can get more details on this if we go through and use the -t option for the table and then put the table name in filter. Now this is the default filter table, so when we look at it we get to see then exactly the same output. But we might recall when we were creating the rules before, we added in the table nat. So even listing our Iptable rules, we have to include this. And now we get to see then our pre-routing chain, and this is where we created our port forwarding rule. We have the input and the output chain along with our post-routing chain. And we can see underneath the post-routing chain we've got masquerade. But when we look at it, we're not seeing all of the detail. We know that we were limiting to certain input or output interfaces, and we don't get to see these here. If we want to see more details, we can start including additional options when we're looking at listing the Iptables rules. So if I go through and clear the screen, and then if we include the additional options -n, so we can actually start seeing the interface names, and V for verbose, we get to see more information. When we look at our pre-routing rule, we're able to see more detail when we look at our port forwarding rule. When we look through now, we can see that we specified that the inbound interface must be EMP0S10, so coming from our router 3 network. In the same way, when we're looking at our post-routing chain, we can see the network address translation rule that we set up with the masquerade target now will only be using network address translation if the outbound interface that we will be using is EMP0S3, the internet-facing card on the router 1 system. So we can see that we can start adding a little bit more detail to our output by including the options -n and V to our listing option of -uppercase L. Now that we've been able to list our firewall rules, we're going to take a look in our next demonstration at how we can start building firewall rules on our router 2 system to protect the network.